Welcome to the FreeThem CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shae Invidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. It's hard to believe, but the FreeThem CEO podcast is here. And I am so excited to welcome you to this show, to my show. If we have not met yet, my name is Shae Invidiata. And I just wanted to start off by thanking you for being here. This has been a journey to get this podcast to this point. It is something that I have been thinking about for really kind of years. And part of my struggle, truthfully, like already starting off, just giving you guys some honesty, but part of the struggle for me has been really, what do I want to talk about and bring value to you? And many people will pick their niche, right? Whether it's in business, if it's in health, in the wellness industry, and picking one niche. And usually that's a really smart way to go. I have so many different areas of my life that it's not just about passion or things I'm invested in. They're not just hobbies or interests, but they're truly pillars in my life that people know me by. And I'm very well known for them. And so this was hard for me because I'm not one of these people that I'm like, okay, I'll just talk about this one topic. I love talking about business and entrepreneurship and going into it. And part of that is so important for me in leveling up your business or your success is, how are you developing as a human? How are you developing as a person? Are you optimizing your health? Because these are just as important to be doing in order to bring you into new levels of success. And that's just one example. So, you could be talking to me about business and all of a sudden I'm going to start talking to you about the quality of your food and the quality of your water and sleep. Let's talk about sleep and the quality of your sleep. It's not just about 8 hours, but are you getting deep sleep? Are you getting your REM sleep, which is your dream state? So all of these different things that I wanted to bring into the conversations because I love talking about them. And I felt that it would be a disservice, really, if I only talked about one topic. And that's just so not Shae. As you will see, the more time we spend together, that's just not me. And so I am really excited to start this journey with you and bring all of me, my life experiences, my lessons. I love to call those things failing forward, when you learn from your experiences and you get back up and you keep going. I always say you cannot fail if you never quit. So if you get back up and keep going, failure's not an option. So here we are. And I thought that it would be nice for me to share a little bit about my background and, some of the things in my earlier life that have really shaped me into who I am today and the different pillars that I have in my life that we're going to be talking about here on the FreeThem CEO podcast, whether it's around business, philanthropy, health, and wellness. All of it is just so important. And we are going to be talking about that here. I talk about having pillars in your life. Some people call these values, principles that you basically live your life by. And I have 5 different pillars, but 2 of my core pillars are impact and transformation. And whenever I'm able to bring impact that causes a positive transformation into somebody's life, I am really living in my purpose. And so much of this was shaped when I was younger, and I developed this desire to help other people, to see change be created. And eventually this thought would become part of my ethos in my early 20s around money and how I viewed money. And I began to really believe that you could make money with a purpose, strongly believing that every day we have the chance to change the world, and we can actually start right now. There's this misconception in high school and then university that we're told, go to university, figure out what you want to do with your life, which, like, let's be real, when you're in your early 20s, as if like, you want to be a lawyer or accountant or a doctor or a therapist. How many people get their degrees and they actually don't even use them in today? And there are some people, of course, that they've thought when they were a kid, they wanted to be a doctor. They grew up to be a doctor, and they're living their dream of what they actually wanted to be. But so many people, that's not the scenario. And it's interesting when you think about that, because we're guided by still some of this like archaic thought of, you go to school, you pick something that you want to be, you go to university, maybe you have a student loan, you come out in debt, then you have to get a job 9 to 5. In that process, find somebody to marry. If you're a woman, start thinking about having a family, get married, have kids, climb the corporate ladder, work the 9 to 5, get tired, exhausted, kids, routines, activities, drop them off. And then when kind of the kids move out of the house and you become this empty nester, that's usually when a lot of people start going, well, now what's my purpose and what do I do? And they start thinking about giving back. And that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But I really developed in my 20s that you could do both at the same time. Why couldn't you make money and still create change today? As I was growing up, I was like, I want to help the world. I want to make money. And as I'm doing that, I want to be able to give back. And I watched my parents do this. I grew up in a home that was filled with a tremendous amount of love. And, when you're a kid, you really don't have a perspective on wealth. Like, do we have a lot? What type of class you're in? You don't have that perspective. But when I grew up as a kid, what I saw is we always had food on the table. We lived in a beautiful home. I always had clothes, and we traveled often, and my parents gave back, as much as we had, they also gave. And it was really beautiful, the environment that I grew up in. And I saw my parents working, but I also saw them donating, and not just with money, but also like with time and our clothes and, the things that we didn't need anymore, we weren't using anymore, we would go and donate them. And I know that this happens in many different families, but for me, it really started to shape me. I had this desire to make lunches with friends and go take them into downtown Toronto. I'm from Toronto in Canada, and I would go feed the homeless with friends on the weekends, or at night when it was winter, bring them down blankets. And I would do these drives of, bringing in blankets and gloves and mitts and all that kind of stuff to help people stay warm. And eventually moving into high school, this would be more global. I started going down to Venezuela and working in orphanages and helping with the kids there and helping to restore what the state of the orphanage house looked like. And so by the time I got into my 20s, I continued to see that you could do life and you can still give back and do good. And I really started to develop this philosophy that we are blessed really to be a blessing to others. And with that, comes a lot of responsibility. I really believe that. We live in a country, we live in a continent that is rich. If you woke up this morning and not only did you have running water, but your water was clean, you are rich on a global standard. If you got to go and reach for a toothbrush this morning to brush your teeth with your clean running water, you are rich on a global standard. And I felt that there was this responsibility, and I wanted to really start living that through and through and more by doing even just like the small things. Sometimes I think people think in order to create positive impact or change, it has to be this massive thing, like going over to a continent like Africa to go, build wells and drill down for clean water, or having to start an organization or starting a campaign or running a full drive. And you don't need to do that. Creating impact can be as small as noticing and acknowledging a human being and allowing for them to be able to smiling at somebody. And you don't know that impact that you are going to have in somebody's life. But when you become intentional about it, that's where you start seeing these impact opportunities, transformational opportunities. And there's a ripple effect that takes place from that when you are able to have a positive influence on somebody's life or circumstance. I often say when you change one person's life, you change the world because you change their world. We all know that when things are going really shitty in our own world, for whatever reason, you really stop paying attention to what's going on in the world around you globally, right? It doesn't really matter what's bad happening on the news, or maybe if there's war happening around. When you are going through a really, really hard time, you're not paying attention to anything external except for what's going on in your own current circumstance. And so when you can be a person that comes into somebody's life and creates hope, creates change, creates a smile, creates that positive transformation, you change their world because you change their perspective. You shake things up and you bring goodness in. And arguably, you change their world. And so for me, it's always about just that one person and starting there, starting small and starting with what's in front of you. And you never know the ripple effect that is going to then have in the world. And this was the idea that led me really into believing, and it's still today, like I said, we are blessed to be a blessing to others. And my motto around making money with a purpose. And this is the driver, has been my driver for years and years. And I'm excited to unpack a lot of these principles with you and talk about how you can use your own talent, your own skill, your own passion, your vocation to create positive change around you. And so I encourage you to think about that. And I'm going to unpack a lot of this later in another episode around creating a legacy of significance. But that's where this idea starts. When you start thinking about how what you do can have a positive impact on somebody else, you move into creating a legacy that carries significance. And that goes beyond you. It survives you as well. At 18 years old, I moved to Hawaii to pursue my university education. I lived there for 3.5 years, and it would eventually bring me to transfer to University of British Columbia, finish my final semester at U of Sydney in Australia. And during this whole time while I was doing school, my eyes were opened to the very dark and horrific reality of human trafficking happening, not just in the United States and Canada, but also around the world. And this issue would come to be a very important part of my life, and it still is today. I have been fighting this issue, this horrendous crime for, I guess, like going on over 18 years now. That journey for me started in 2003. And after I finished university and eventually I moved back to Toronto, and when I was starting kind of my career path unintentionally, my father's been in real estate now for 38 years. And so I'd grown up in it my entire life. And at the time I was working for a fashion retailer and thought, this is so silly. I'm back home right now. I should be learning the family business. And while I was getting my real estate license, I was also very interested in what the Canadian government was doing and really found out what they weren't doing to be fighting the issue of human trafficking, but then also looking across the country nationally and saying, where are the groups? Where are the organizations? Where is the world really on this horrendous issue of human trafficking? And this for me was really the first merging, if you will, of me having the ability to create my own money through real estate, through my first real career move, if you will, and something I was really passionate about that I felt the whole world needed to hear about, because human trafficking was happening everywhere. And the average age of entry into forced prostitution in Canada today is still 13, 14 years old. And I could not stay silent on this issue. From the girls that I had encountered and hearing their stories, I had made a vow to myself back in Hawaii that as long as I had a voice, I wanted to tell their stories. I do not like the phrase being a voice for the voiceless. I believe we all have a voice, but theirs had been silenced, and I wanted to amplify it. And I thought that through my business, and if I could make more money, I could do more. And so this was the beginning of my journey that would really shape me into who I am today, what I am bringing you here on the FreeThem CEO podcast. Yes, it's about creating a life of freedom and owning our decisions and becoming the CEO of our own lives. But it is also for me about how we can make certain decisions to live and operate in such a way that it would bring freedom to other people. And so that is kind of the little secret actually behind the title, because I am known as this freedom warrior. Anytime you are talking about exploitation of people, talking about freedom of speech, freedom of mobility, body autonomy, freedom of movement, all of this stuff, you will hear me roar. And I'm very, very passionate about freedom and our rights in general. And I'm equally just as passionate about making sure how we wake up every morning, how we feel, no matter how much money is in our bank account. It's not always about that number that is going to bring you freedom, but it is truly about how you also wake up in the morning and how you feel, whether you are feeling like you are liberated from the inside out. And that is what I want to share with you here. It's the space I'm wanting to create here. And so that's just a little insight into who Shae Invidiata is. I've got so many other things we are going to be talking about in this space around health and wellness, from things I love, like cold plunging in like 1 degree water, to I've removed my breast implants and I'm going to be sharing stories on breast implant illness here, to going chemical free and what it looks like to transform your house and your lifestyle from eliminating chemicals and toxins in your house, in your kitchen, in your bathroom, in your skincare, in your makeup care, but also like in the quality of your water, all of this stuff, and why it matters, because it impacts the toxic load of our physical body, but also our mental and emotional state as well. And these are very, very important as we are moving towards building a life of true freedom. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning into the FreeThem CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shae Invidiata and the FreeThem CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.